I arrived at the airport, my heart pounding with anticipation of traveling with my daughter, dreams of family reconciliation, the warm sand of Florida. But there was no one there. I called, "Oh, your flight was supposed to be yesterday. I think you're late." Laughter on the other end of the line. Betrayal from my own flesh and blood. So I made one call, and then I had 87 missed calls, and her trip ended behind bars. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I was stirring the pasta sauce when the knock came. Sharp, impatient. 3 quick raps that made me jump. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, and crossed the small living room, my slippers shuffling against the worn hardwood. Through the peephole, I saw Joanna's face tight with something I couldn't quite read. Buford loomed behind her, hands shoved in his coat pockets. "Joanna, sweetheart," I said, opening the door wide. "What a surprise. Come in, please." She brushed past without meeting my eyes, her designer bag swinging from her shoulder. Buford followed, tracking snow onto my entrance mat. He didn't bother with a greeting. "Dad, we need to talk." Joanna's voice had that clipped quality I'd learned to dread over the past year. She dropped her bag onto my kitchen table, with a thud that rattled the salt shaker. "Of course. Let me turn down the stove. Can I get you some tea? Coffee? We're not here for refreshments." Buford settled into my chair. My chair, the one with the cushion molded to my back, and stretched his legs out like he owned the place. A smirk played at the corner of his mouth. I turned off the burner and faced them, my stomach tightening. Joanna was already pulling receipts from her bag, fanning them across the table like evidence at a trial. "Look at these, Dad. Just look." Her finger jabbed at the numbers. "Mortgage, insurance, property taxes. It's crushing us. The house I gave you has those expenses." "Yes, all homes do. But you own it outright. Joanna. No rent, no landlord. That's not enough anymore." She cut me off, her eyes hard. "You don't understand how expensive everything is. Buford's consulting business had a slow quarter, and we've got obligations, real obligations." I moved closer to the table, trying to keep my voice steady. "I gave you the home I built with your mother. Every penny I saved went into that property. What more can I? What more?" Buford leaned forward, his tone mocking. "You're sitting in this cozy little apartment with a pension and investments, playing the martyr. Meanwhile, we're scraping by month to month. You've got resources. Old man. Time to step up." The word old landed like a slap. I felt heat crawl up my neck. "How dare you speak to me that way? I worked 40 years to provide for my family. That house was my retirement security, and I gave it to you both because Joanna is my daughter, and I wanted her to have stability. I won't be talked to like some miser in my own home." Joanna stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "See, this is exactly what Buford said would happen. You get defensive instead of helpful. We need money, Dad, not lectures about your sacrifices." I reached for the folder I kept on my bookshelf, the one with all the property transfer documents. My hands shook slightly as I pulled out the deed copy. "Look at this. I signed over a house worth $400,000. $400,000. And you're calling me stingy." She snatched the paper from my hand, her face flushed. For a moment she just stared at it. Then she tore it clean in half. "You think paperwork impresses me? You think this makes up for not helping when we actually need it?" The sound of ripping paper seemed to echo in my tiny kitchen. I stood frozen, watching the pieces flutter to the floor. "Get out." My voice came out hoarse. "Both of you." Now Buford rose slowly, that infuriating smile still in place. "Come on, babe. Let the old guy cool off. He'll come around when he realizes we're serious." They left without another word. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the framed photo of Joanna's college graduation on my wall. I sank into the chair. Buford had vacated, still warm from his body, and stared at the torn document on my floor. My daughter's face, twisted with anger and entitlement, kept replaying in my mind. When had she become this person? When had I become disposable? The pasta sauce had gone cold on the stove. I didn't bother reheating it. The next 5 days crawled by in a haze of unanswered calls and restless nights. I kept replaying the argument, searching for the moment I could have said something different, something that would have reached her. But every time I picked up my phone to call Joanna, I set it back down. What would I even say? On the morning of January 20th, I forced myself out for my usual run through Lincoln Park. The cold bit at my face, and patches of ice made the path treacherous. But I needed to move, needed to feel something other than this hollow ache in my chest. I was halfway around the loop, when my phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. A text from Margaret, my former colleague from the real estate firm. We'd stayed friendly over the years, occasionally meeting for coffee to swap stories about retirement. Her message was short. Cornelius, are you okay? Saw something concerning online. Call me when you can. I stopped mid-stride, my breath forming clouds in the frigid air. My fingers fumbled with the screen as I opened my messaging app and typed back. What did you see? Her response came quickly. Check your daughter's social media. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. My chest constricted. I turned and walked briskly back toward my apartment, my running shoes crunching through the snow. The 15-minute walk felt endless. Once inside, I shook off my jacket and went straight to my computer, an old desktop that took forever to boot up. My hands trembled as I typed Joanna's name into the search bar. There it was, posted 2 days ago, a photo of the house, the beautiful brick colonial with the maple tree in front that I'd planted when Joanna was 6. The caption read, "When your dad gives you a generous gift but acts like Scrooge when you actually need help. Family drama, stingy old man." 43 likes, 18 comments, most from people I didn't recognize, making jokes about boomer entitlement and holding on to every penny. I sat back in my chair, the room spinning slightly. She'd put our private conflict on display for strangers to mock. My own daughter. I dialed her number before I could talk myself out of it. She answered on the 4th ring. Dad, what? Why would you post that, Joanna? Why air our family business to the entire world? Oh God. I heard rustling like she was shifting position. It's social media, Dad. Everyone vents online. Don't make it a bigger deal than it is. A bigger deal. You called me a stingy old man in front of hundreds of people. It was a joke. You're being dramatic as usual. Look, I've got a meeting in 10 minutes. Can we not do this right now? My throat tightened. This hurts me, Joanna. Deeply. Whatever issues we have, we should resolve them privately, not through public humiliation. You always make everything about your feelings. Her voice had gone flat, detached. Maybe if you actually helped instead of playing the victim, I wouldn't need to vent. Joanna. The line went dead. She'd hung up on me. I set the phone down carefully on my desk and stared at the screen at my daughter's smiling profile picture. That photo was from last Christmas, taken in my living room. She'd been laughing at something Buford said, her eyes bright. Had she already despised me then? Had every smile been a lie? The apartment felt smaller somehow, the walls pressing in. I needed air, but I'd just been outside. I needed answers, but Joanna clearly wouldn't give them. All I had was this knowing certainty that something fundamental had broken between us, and I didn't know how to fix it, or if it even could be fixed. Over the next 2 weeks, I tried to lose myself in routine. Morning runs, afternoon chess games at the community center, evening documentaries, but Joanna's words echoed in every quiet moment. You always make everything about your feelings, as if my feelings didn't matter, as if I was just an obstacle to her comfort. On the evening of February 5th, I skipped the community center and stayed home. I set up my personal chess set, the wooden one with hand-carved pieces that my father had given me 50 years ago. I didn't have an opponent, but I played both sides anyway, moving pieces slowly while my mind wandered. Buford. This all traced back to Buford. I remembered meeting him at the engagement party 3 years ago. Joanna had been radiant in a blue dress, introducing her fiancé with obvious pride. Buford had given me a firm handshake and an appraising look, the kind real estate agents give a property before deciding if it's worth their time. "So you're the legendary Cornelius," he'd said. "Joanna tells me you built quite the empire in Chicago real estate." "I did well enough," I'd replied modestly. "Enough to retire comfortably, and leave something for my daughter." His eyes had sharpened at that. "Smart man. Family legacy is everything." At the time, I'd thought he appreciated family values. Now I understood he'd been calculating my net worth. I moved a black knight, capturing my own white bishop. In chess, you had to think several moves ahead, anticipate your opponent's strategy. I hadn't done that with Buford. I'd been too happy that Joanna seemed happy, too relieved she'd found someone after her divorce. I hadn't looked closer at the man behind the charm. The engagement party, the wedding, those first family dinners. I replayed them all, searching for the turning point. It came about 18 months ago. Buford had mentioned his consulting firm was expanding. He'd asked my opinion on leveraging property for business capital. I'd advised caution, suggesting he build the business slowly without taking on dangerous debt. He'd smiled and nodded, but his eyes had gone cold. "Conservative approach. That's one way to do it." After that, Joanna started pulling away. Fewer calls, shorter visits, and when we did talk, there was always an edge to her voice, an impatience that hadn't been there before, like I was wasting her time. A knock at my door startled me from my thoughts. I glanced at the clock. 8:30. Too late for social calls. When I opened the door, the hallway was empty, except for an envelope on my doormat. No postage, just my name written in Joanna's looping handwriting. I brought it inside and tore it open. A single sheet of paper with a bulleted list. "Dad, since you won't answer my calls, here's what we need. $15,000 for roof repairs. Your gift house has issues. $8,000 to cover Buford's business expenses this quarter. $5,000 for upcoming property taxes. Total $28,000. We need this by March 1st. If you actually care about me, you'll help. J. $28,000 demanded like I was an ATM. No, please. No acknowledgement of what I'd already sacrificed. Just entitlement. And a deadline." I crumpled the letter in my fist and walked to the window. Outside, snow was falling again, coating the street in fresh white. Somewhere out there, my daughter was living in the house I'd built, sleeping in rooms I'd painted, walking on floors I'd refinished, and she thought I was her enemy. No, not her enemy. Buford's enemy. And somehow he'd convinced her I was the villain in this story. I smoothed out the letter and read it again. The phrasing, the tone, it didn't sound like Joanna. It sounded like someone else's words coming out of her mouth, poison spreading through her thoughts. I returned to my chess set and studied the board. Sometimes, in chess, you had to sacrifice a piece to win the game. You had to let your opponent think they were winning, right up until the moment you trapped their king. I wasn't ready to give up on my daughter, but I also wasn't going to be played for a fool anymore. The next 2 weeks blurred into a strange routine. I ran my morning loops through Lincoln Park, made small talk with neighbors in the building's mailroom, watched documentaries about Arctic explorers and ancient civilizations, anything to occupy my mind. I didn't call Joanna. She didn't call me. The silence between us felt like a living thing, growing heavier each day.